Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. Test, test, test. Test number 2, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1, test, test. Test number 3, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so morning everybody. I'm going to get started a little bit earlier today, just because I've got some announcements. So on November the 10th, I'm going to start another 6-week mindfulness course. So if anybody's interested in that, contact me and I'll add you to the list and get started on that. That's going to run Tuesdays from 7 to 9:30 from November the 10th onwards for 6 weeks. And I will also run one in early January. It's very difficult to know what to do about re-engaging in person-to-person meditation classes again. So just in the meantime, while we're separate and locked down and so on, I'm just going to continue online. And I've also made some changes to the schedule for the classes. Now the classes are all at the same time, so if you're a member of the mindfulness-based resilience course group, you know nothing changes basically other than the content of the classes. The 2020 meditation course group is going to be on Thursdays at 7 p.m. So if you're a member of the 2020 meditation course group, that's when your class will be broadcast, but obviously you'll have the link so you can listen to it any time you want. But you need to be a member to get that link. Saturday mornings are the public class, and the plan there is to, morning Sue, is to, when I get morning Maxine, when I get back to teaching in person, I'd also like to be able to broadcast. And so the idea is I'll be able to broadcast the Saturday morning class while I'm teaching it. So for those of you that can't make it, you'll be able to tune in. And that's about it really. So that's just a bit of insight into which classes are on which days. I've added that to the WhatsApp group and sent it out in an email. I'm going to add, or to a couple of WhatsApp groups actually. I'm going to add some information images with the dates and times and schedules. One of the things that's happened this month is I actually planned out an October class schedule, so you'll be able to know which sessions happen on which days, and I'll publish that for everybody and put those on the WhatsApp groups. If any of this leaves you confused, feel free to email me, but essentially the changes are very small and subtle, and there's no new times. It's just a juggling of classes around at those times. If you're on YouTube, apologies, but I think the volume's a little bit low, but it's coming through okay on Podbean. I think if you just tweak it up a little bit on YouTube, you'll be fine. And so what today is a class on loving awareness. And what I'm going to do is just close those down. Dump. And what there is the 3 questions that everybody asks themselves whenever they hear about anything. Question 1 is, what is it? And I have covered this in the mindfulness-based resilience course group. But as this is public, I'd like you to all know it's a name, and it's a name for a sense of connection. It's a sense of connection that we have for others, so that we don't actually feel separate from the humanity as a whole, which is one of the world's greatest problems, is this sense of separateness and the us and them that comes from it all. And the us and them is divisive and destructive, and it undermines our humanity. And this is happening a lot now. So what do we do about it? You can't change other people. You know, you can go on marches, you can sign petitions and so on and so forth, but you'll make more of a difference by connecting yourself, and then that is an example to others. So that's what loving awareness is. Why would I want this sense of connection in a world where essentially everybody sees me as a competitor? The reason for that is because you're designed for it. So what happens when you take a fish out of water? So if you've ever seen a fisherman land a fish, what the fish does is it thrashes around very violently on the land. And what it's trying to do there is to get back into the water. It's designed for one environment, and it's been rudely jettisoned, removed from that environment and placed in another one where it's basically not going to survive. And so that when we look at each other in the modern world, a lot of the stress that we experience and that other people experience is the same as that fish thrashing about, desperately trying to get back into its environment. Human beings are desperately trying to get back into the environment that they're designed for. What environment is that? It's an environment where they're connected to each other and they're connected to nature. And if you do any sort of research on primitive people, hunter-gatherers, how humanity's lived for most of the last many hundreds of thousands of years, and before that, you know, we had a different genetic design, but we've been social animals for tens of millions of years, and social animals feel a deep sense of connection, and that's being undermined by the modern world. So regaining that, what that does is that helps us to rebalance, because we're constantly off balance in the modern world because of the way that everything appears to be competitive, which it is, and we are collaborators. So that's a difficult experience for everyone, and that's at the root of all of the suffering and confusion that we see in the modern world. It's all because we don't actually feel part of the human family, and we don't feel part of nature itself. That gets taken away from us. We're educated out of it, and then we're told different, bad. Those people over there, they're different. They're bad. Fear them. It's not a good message. Okay, so that all being the case, how? How do we reconnect with others and with nature? And, you know, is this just like hippy-dippy naivety at work, where we, you know, dream that everyone can live together, and actually they can't because the world's full of cruel or evil or selfish people? Well, those are all that's an observation of people who will probably never be able to connect in their lives. One of the things that I've learned by teaching resilience for getting on for 7 years now, and so I've had the experience of training students and them encountering all sorts of adversities. I mean, everybody encounters adversities. I encounter adversities. Everybody encounters adversities. But some of the adversities that my students have encountered are very great. And when they come back and tell me how they fared in those adversities, the tools that I teach they've discovered a key to it, pivotal. Right at the top of the list is the stress management and emotional regulation tools. Now, stress management and emotional regulation, the way I teach it, is two parts to it. One is breathing and the other is relaxation. And the whole process is called interoception. It's an interoceptive process. What we're doing is connecting to our body. And in order to do that, we must be in the present moment. You can't connect to your body by saying, I'll connect to my body tomorrow. It's not the same thing. And so connecting to the present moment and the body are the same thing. Then what happens is we encounter our emotions. And so if we're strangers to our emotions, that becomes a difficult place. Part of this separation, the narrative of separation that we encounter on a day-to-day basis, is a separation from our physiology and our emotions. Emotions are there to be suppressed using escapism, distraction, comfort and pleasure. If we display emotions, we're weak. Therefore, to be strong, what we need to do is suppress those emotions. And here is the list of things that you can do: escapism, distraction, comfort and pleasure. So to suppress your emotions, you might have a glass of wine and watch the TV. You might distract yourself by constantly doing something, distracting yourself from the nature of your mind and your emotions. If you focus on extending comfort and pleasure, let's say, nice holiday to the Maldives, everything's fine. You come back and you feel just as much, if not more, rubbish than you did before you went there. And what's happening there is we're not actually getting familiar and comfortable with our minds, with our thoughts and emotions. Doing that, becoming familiar and comfortable with our emotions and our thoughts and our bodies, our physiology, getting the information back from it, is the most useful thing that we can do for our personal resilience. Then what happens is a thing called empathy. So empathy is where you notice other people's emotions. So you're sitting down and speaking to somebody and you might feel sadness, you might feel joy, depending on what they're feeling. So this, in order to feel somebody else's emotions, and in order to get comfortable with what other people are saying, we need to be comfortable with our emotions and then get comfortable with our thoughts. Because what they say, it's their thoughts. And if you scrutinize your thoughts, if you look at your thoughts, they are a message from the subconscious. And the subconscious just doesn't make very much sense for a lot of the time. Okay, so that in a nutshell is loving awareness, what it is, connection to nature. Why do we want to be connected to nature and to each other? Because we're designed to live like that. And all of the confusion, suffering and stress that we experience is rooted in the fact that we don't feel like that. And then how do we do that? Through the very same mindfulness, meditation and resilience practices that teachers like me teach. So what are they? Well, let's start off with I've just added a podcast, which very remiss of me, I hadn't actually done, which is the meditation of no meditation. So that's the basic practice that I teach, which begins with a bell. When there's a bell to hand, a student mentioned that they felt like one of Pavlov's dogs, because whenever they hear that sound they just naturally relax, which is not a bad thing. it's not a bad thing to relax by focusing on sound moving through time, which is basically what we're doing there, because that is an activity that is available to us no matter where we are or what we're doing. And if we begin by checking in with our body, noticing the elbows by the side, noticing the sensation of the back of the palms on the thighs, assuming you're sitting, and the sensation of the fingers and thumbs in contact, and the feeling of the feet on the floor, and becoming aware of our posture. This is all opening up our physiology to our awareness, because it has become disconnected. So we're just connecting. And a good place to start is with the breath. By noticing the movement of the belly rising and falling, or the breath in the tip of the nostril, whichever you prefer. And all we're doing there is noticing the belly rising and falling, and notice that moving through time. The breath is marking time. Like the second hands of a clock ticking. So the belly is rising and falling. And the chatter of the mind is in the background, but we're aware of it, we're noticing it. And whatever emotions or whatever sensations there are in the body, we're noticing that too. But the breath is an anchor to the present moment. It's a portal into the present moment. If your mind is busy, you can repeat in your mind rising, falling, rising, falling. And if the mind intervenes, thoughts arise, or the mind wanders. When a thought arises, we repeat in the mind, thinking, thinking. And then back to noticing the breath. Rising, falling. We use the same inner voice. So it's interesting if you have an inner dialogue, if you're noticing the breath and the inner dialogue pops up and it starts talking, and then you notice and then you say thinking, thinking. You actually finish its sentence for it. And then come back and notice the movement of the belly or the breath in the nostrils. Rising, falling. the eyes still closed or half shut, looking down at the floor, just let the mind go free. No goals, no expectations, no instructions. And you'll find you're still just in touch with the breath, noticing it. Rising and falling, but it's something that's happening in our awareness rather than being the focus of our awareness. And then thoughts will arise. And this time, when a thought arises, if you recognize it, say in your mind, repeating. If you don't recognize it, you say in your mind, fleeting. There's a new thought. It's fleeting. If it's an old repetitive thought, just say repeating. If you have an inner dialogue, some do, some don't, but if you do, you use the same voice, the same inner dialogue voice to say in your mind. If you don't recognize it, fleeting. If you do recognize it, repeating. And the place where we're noticing this is from a place of awareness of the present moment. So we're not focusing on anything in specific. We're noticing the breath, noticing sounds, noticing the body, noticing the sense of sitting, interpreting what I say. If it's a new thought, fleeting. If it's an old thought, repeating. And then just back to presence. And because we're not focusing on anything specifically, focusing on the breath, whatever it might happen to be, instead we're just aware of the present moment experience, all the phenomena that go to make up the present moment. Because we've done some calming meditations, it opens up a space for thoughts to arise in. And when those thoughts arise, if we recognize them, we say repeating. If we don't recognize them, we say fleeting. And then back to that sense of awareness of the present moment. And again, allow the mind to be free. The relationship we want to build with the mind is like we're sitting with an old friend and we're just open to that friend. Whatever it is they say, we're comfortable, no matter how wacky. It's an old friend. Old friends say wacky things. We're just open to it and open to thought. And then we're noticing the thoughts coming and going. Just like clouds, birds moving across the sky. They arise in our awareness, move across the sky, and disappear behind the horizon, only to be replaced by another bird or another cloud. It's good to check in with the body as well. Notice any tension, release it on the out breath. And the tension's drifting out of our awareness in the same way that the thoughts do. Arise in our awareness, and they subside. Same as the breath, rising and falling. As we breathe in, the breath enters our experience. As we breathe out, it fades away. Breathing in, noticing the alert coolness. Breathing out, noticing the relaxation. Same with thought. Thought arises. Comes into our awareness. Thought subsides. Drifts away. So with your elbows by the side, your head balanced comfortably, noticing the shoulders and the back and sides of the neck on each out breath. Breathing in normally, breathing out, you're bringing your attention to the back and sides of your neck and shoulders. And you're noticing the body releasing that tension for you. So whatever thoughts arise, you notice a thought arising, you breathe in. Bring the thought into the sensation of the end breath, and as you breathe out, you're breathing out and relaxing the thought away. Thought arises in breath, connecting the thought to the breath. As you breathe out, breathe and relax the thought away. Noticing the movement of the belly, rising and falling. And breath entering and leaving the nostrils. And notice whatever you can hear, whatever sounds there are. And whenever you're ready, Gently return your attention to your surroundings. Okay, so what happens when we practice that kind of meditation is we become more connected to our physiology, more connected to our thoughts and emotions. These are the messages from the subconscious. Becoming familiar with them, comfortable with them, better able to interpret them. They matter less because most of them are nonsense. Much emotion doesn't have much sense to it. It's ancient systems operating in an environment they're not designed for. And then bit by bit by bit, we get more comfortable and familiar with it. And then over time, the sense of connection grows. It's a matter of looking for it. So over the course of October, what I do is introduce some practices that will help you to identify how connected you are and develop that sense of connection, and develop loving awareness, which is the place to be. Okay, so that's it for today. So Sunday is mindfulness-based resilience group training at 7 p.m. So that's tomorrow night, and the topic is inner peace, and yeah, again 15 minutes of 10-15 minute talk, and the rest is meditation. So have a great weekend, everybody, and I will see those of you on various classes during the course of the week. Take care. Glad you enjoyed them, Sue.